Today's daf, Be'ezras Hashem, is Masechta Menachos Daf Tzaddik Ches, number 98. And we're going to start from about on Tzaddik Ches Amud Aleph, about 6 lines from the top. Bakama Ama Beininis. The Gemara wants to know, we know that the measurement of the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash was measured in amos. So how much is an amma? Let's say, for example, the Chumash says, Vasisa Shulchan, the Shulchan should be made amasayim arkoi. 2 amas should be its length, amma rachba, and 1 amma should be its width. So how much is amma? That's what the Gemara is discussing. And that, based on that, that will determine how big the kalim are. So v'kama amma beininus. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, you see it? Let me just make it a drop bigger. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Shisha tvachim. 6 tvachim was an amma. Okay, so, and that's true. So when we're going to say if 6 tvachim makes an amma, then when the Torah tells you that the shulchan was 2 amas in length and 1 amma in width, the table was 2 amas in length, 1 amma in width, so it must be that it's 6 tvachim in width and 12 tvachim in length. And Amar above, Rabbi Yossi bar Avim, Afanan Amitinina, that's our Mishnah. Rab Meir says, HaShulchan Orkai, the length of the Shulchan was Shneim Asar, was 12 tvachim. The Rachbai, and the width was Shisha, was 6 tvachim. This was not everybody's opinion. According to Rab Meir, the Shulchan was 12 tvachim by 6 tvachim. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, an amma was actually 5 tvachim, and therefore the table was a little bit smaller. And what's that relevant? How big the table was? It was the main question that they have to deal with is, where do you put the spoons? Okay, where do you put the spoons of the? If there was no room on the table anymore because it was filled up with the breads. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you put the spoons of the frankincense on top of the breads. But according to Rabbi Meir, the table was enough, and there was a space between the 2 stacks of loaves to accommodate the 2 spoons. Now, Michlal, now we call it Amma Beininis, that there was an Amma Beininis. That the medium Amma, Michlal, the Hava Amma Dinefisha Menah. There must be a measuring stick of an amma that was even greater than 6 tvachim. So, because you're calling it, what was the normal amma? The median amma was 6 tvachim, but it must be that there was a measuring stick even greater than 6 tvachim. That's the truth. Yes, there was. V'hotnan, as we learned in the Mishnah. Let's show you a picture of how it looked. The Mishnah is going to say that there were 3. This is a Mishnah Midos. Midos describes how the second Beis Hamikdash looked. And what the Mishnah is going to describe is that there were measuring sticks that were measured amas, and like 2 of them, one of them was 6 tefachim and a half a etzba and a half a finger. By the way, a tefach is like your fist. So, and one was 6 tefachim and a full finger. It was like a larger type of measuring stick. It was off by an inch or 2. Okay, let's call it that. And this, where did they put this measuring sticks? You see, here in the Beis Hamikdash, there was a place called Shar Niknor. You know, with the 15 steps, you go up, and then you go into the Beis Hamikdash, right? You remember the 15 steps you go up. Here's another picture. You go up, and you go into the Beis Hamikdash, right? And you go through this Shar Niknor. Well, on top of the Shar Niknor was a room which had a picture of the Persian Empire. It had a picture of the Persian government. That was like a room that jutted out of the wall. And there must have been steps to get up to that room. And what was in that room? In that room, there were 2 measuring rods. There was kalim there, and there were 2 measuring rods. One was a big measuring rod. One was even bigger than the normal measuring rods. And you can see it on the table over here. And so the Gemara is going to ask a couple of questions. Why do you need a picture of the Persian government? It's like having a picture of the White House in the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara is going to deal with that. But first, the Gemara says like this: Shtei amas hoye b'Shushan, Shtei amas hoye b'Shushan Habira. There was 2 sticks in Shushan Habira, in the office of Shushan Habira. In that office, on top of the Shar Niknar. Achas al Kerem is Rachas Tzefoinis, v'achas al Kerem is Rachas Troimis. One was on the northeast, and one was on the southeast. As you can see in the picture, there's 2 on the tables over here. You have 2 measuring rods. What did they use those measuring rods for? These al Kerem is Rachas Tzefoinis, you say al Shal Moshe Chatzi Etzba. The measuring rod on the northeast part of the office was 6 tefachim and a half an etzba bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had a 6 tefach amma, so this was a little bit bigger. Shal Kerem is Rachas Droimis hois yisera lechatzi etzba. It was the one on the southeast was even greater than that by another half etzba. Nimtzu yisera al shal Moshe etzba. So that one was even bigger, was greater than Moshe Rabbeinu's stick was by an etzba. Now, here's the key. It's a fascinating key over here. In other words, they had a false measurement. You have a yardstick. If I give you a foot, a measuring stick that is a foot, it's usually exactly a foot. They had measuring sticks that were a little bit off, a little bit greater than an amma by a finger or a half a finger. Why? Because they had to measure out to pay workers. And therefore, let's say a worker says, I'm going to put down, let's say, a baseboard, an amma long, and you're going to pay me $300. So the head of the treasury, if he measured with a faulty stick that was smaller than an amma, let's say it was off by a millimeter, so he'll pay him the full 300, but really the guy was supposed to only get 299.75. So he got an extra quarter more of Hegdish money, which can lead to a big Avera of Me'ila. So therefore, they had big measuring sticks. And these big measuring sticks were such that it was for sure greater than an amma. So the workers...
Isn't shorting somebody also a big Avera?
Very good. That's a very good question. So I was thinking about that, but I guess if the fact that you were privileged to work in the Beis Hamikdash was good advertisement and that you could get other jobs. But yes, the workers had to overwork a little bit, produce more so that they don't get paid for doing less, because that could come l'day mi'ila. So Nimtzis V'loma Amru, why did they make Achas Gedoyla Achas Katana? Very good question. Why did they make it one even greater and one was smaller? But both of them were bigger than the normal measuring stick. Kidei sheyehei ha'omnim noitlim b'ktana u'machzirim b'gedoyla. Kidei shelo yavayu l'dei mi'ila. So when they took with the smaller measurement, but when they did the work, they did it with the larger measurement, so that they don't get overpaid for something, and they shouldn't come l'dei mi'ila. Being overpaid by Hegdish, even by a quarter, could lead to a big Issa Daraisa. V'tarta lamali, why do you need 2 big sticks? Only 1 stick should be enough that's bigger than the Moshe. Again, Moshe Rabbeinu was the exact stick. It was 6 tvachim. So they made it a little bit bigger by a half a finger or by a full finger more. Chada l'kasba v'dava, those that worked in silver and gold. So since they're dealing with higher, it's more expensive. So there, they made the stick just slightly bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu's by a half a finger. And the contractors, to measure out what the contractors did, they used a bigger measuring stick. It said on the measuring stick an amma, but we know it was bigger than that. So that when the contractor got paid, we measured what he did, and he certainly got paid, and he even did more. The contractor did more than he was being paid for. Now, let's get back to the picture again, and we discussed that the illustration of the picture shows that they had the picture of the Persian government buildings on top in the Beis Hamikdash hanging. So the question is, why do you need that there? Tanan Hasam Shar Olav Shushan Abira Tsura. They had a picture of the Persian government. So my Tama, why do you keep the Persian government in the Beis Hamikdash? So Rav Chizda, Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. It's a machlokes between Rav Yitzchak and Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. Chadama, one said you kept a picture of the Persian government today. So the Jewish people should have gratitude to remember which government gave them the permission to build the Beis Hamikdash, which was the Persian government. Right? It's like Lahavdil, if you have the picture of Trump in the Beis Hamikdash, Lahavdil. So that's basically to have that gratitude. Others say, we should always remember we're under the jurisdiction of the Persian government, so we should have a little bit fear of the government. Rabbi Yanai said, and Rabbi Yanai is giving good advice to the Jewish people. Jewish people, for somehow ignore maybe the gullus causes us to not to take the laws and the government seriously. So Rabbi Yanai said, you should always think about the fear of the government. Shenema, because the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu showed the utmost respect to Parai. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Parai that during Makas Bechoros, all your servants are going to come look for me. They're going to say, bow down to me and say, get out of Mitzrayim. But Moshe did not say, you Parai are going to come visit me and bow to me to get out of Mitzrayim, which is exactly what happened. But Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to say that to Parai, because despite what was going to happen, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to show utmost respect to Parai. And Rabbi Yochanan said, here's another pasuk. Shenema v'yad Hashem hoisa el elyo v'yishanes mosnav v'yoretz lifnei Achav ad boy Acha Yisraelav. Achav was a wicked king, and he was just a government. It was the Malchus Yisrael, and nevertheless, Elyo Navi showed the utmost respect for him and started running before him, so that Achav should not walk alone. You have to see what it's talking about over there. So the Gemara brought two proofs that despite the fact that we know we're on top, nevertheless, you're supposed to show utmost respect to the Goyish government. Then the pasuk says, since we discussed a machlokes between Rabbi Chizda and Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, so the Gemara also brings another machlokes between Rabbi Chizda and Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi. The Tanakh tells us that when God will build in Sefer Yecheskel the third Beis Hamikdash, imagine like a river coming out of the Beis Hamikdash, and then there's going to be beautiful trees on either side of that river, of that channel of water, which was emanating from the Beis Hamikdash, and you're going to be able to eat those luscious fruits, and the leaves, the pasuk says, "V'aleu litrufa." If you just eat those leaves, you'll be able to get healed. Healed from what? Again, this is the future. So Rav Chizda bar Avdimi, Chad says, "Lahate per shel mala," that this is coming to. You'll be healed for somebody who's nebuch born as a mute. He'll eat that leaf and he'll be able to talk. And some say that it means that it will be able to help people who are childless have children. Itmar, the mouth, that's what true fa. It's a healing for the peh, for the mouth, either your mouth that's on top of you or the mouth that's on bottom. Itmar, Chizkiah says, lahate per ilmin. Chizkiah says this leaf will help people who are mute to be able to talk. To help people who can't have children, be able to have children. Now, the Gemara darshans the pasuk which describes, which we saw this before, where the Torah tells you what do you do on the table? What's on the table? So, like what was on the table was 6 loaves of bread, right, as you can see in the picture. But where did it get it from? So the pasuk says this: take flour, I say, bake it to 12 loaves, and you bake it into 2 stacks, 6 on each stack. A lot of excessive words in these pasuks. in these psukim. So the Gemara darshins and tells you, Taner Rabbanim, the rabbis taught. Ilu nema v'lakachta soilis v'fisa oiser shteim esrei chalas v'samta oisim shtayim marachas v'loy nema sheish. If the Torah didn't tell you put 6 per stack, hoyisa oima, I would have said acha shel arba v'acha shel shmoina, that you put 1 stack of 4 chalas and 1 stack of 8. You don't have to put it 6 and 6. L'kach nema sheish. That's what the Torah tells you. It has to be 6. V'ili nema, if the Torah would have just said shtayim marachas sheish marachas. The Torah didn't give you that it was 12. If the Torah just tell you two stacks, 6 per stack, I would think maybe the Torah meant there's 3 stacks. Maybe the Torah wanted you to have 18 chalas, each one with 6 loaves on it. That's why the Torah told you that there should be 12 chalas. If the Torah just wrote 12 chalos on 2 stacks, it didn't tell you how many stacks. Well, you can take 12 and divide it into 3 stacks, right? Each one containing 4. The kachnema shtayim v'sheish. Besides, if the Torah wasn't so clear, I would never know how to stack up the chalos. Now I know it has to look like this. Okay, 6 with two stacks each. The question is, noisim shtayim aracha shel sheish. V'imnosan acha shel arba v'acha shel shmoina lo yotza. You have to have 2 stacks of 6 each, but if you put 1 of 4 and 1 of 8, you're not yotza. What happens if you have shtayim shel sheva? Let's say you have 2 stacks and you added extra chalas to it. You put 7 and 7. Rabbi says, you ignore the top ones. So it's not a hefsek. You just ignore. So you could add, if you added accidentally another challah on top, that's okay. Says the Gemara, wait a second, but you're supposed to put the 2 spoons on the challahs. And if you're going to put it on the 7th challah, there's a hefsek. It's a chatzitza. It's supposed to be on the 6th challah. You're supposed to put the v'nasata al hamarechas, as you can see in the Chumash, levoy nizaka, 2 spoons of pure frankincense. So how could you put it on the 7th loaf on top? One said the other. Chizda said to Rav Nuna, or Rav Huna says to Rav Chizda. Rabbi Latame, the Oma al B'samach. Rabbi is of the opinion, like we see in the picture over here, that where was the spoons? Actually was on the table. And when the Torah says put it al, doesn't mean put it on top, put it on the table next to the stacks of loaves. All right. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yaimeh ben Asata al Amarechas Levoy Nizaka al B'samach, means next to the stack of loaves, not on top of the loaves. Atoyma al B'samach ela al mamish. Maybe it means you put it, the 2 spoons on top of the loaves. When the Torah tells you put the orain, you put on top of the orain the paroiches, the curtains. Well, the curtain was next to the orain; it was not on top of the orain. Al b'samach. Al means next to the paroiches. So sometimes in Chumash, when the Torah writes al, it doesn't mean put top; it means next to. Therefore, according to Rebbe, it's nothing wrong if you put 7 loaves. Don't worry about it. We view as the top loaf as if it doesn't exist. How is it lined up? So Tanara bottom. Look at the picture over here. Here's the picture on the left side, where all the kalim, the orain, the shulchan, and the menorah were going from northeast to west to east. It was lined up west to east, except if you notice, the orain went from north to south. Okay, it was laying horizontal. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. Tanrabanan, kol hakalim shebeis hamikdash arkan la'arkan shel bayis chutz ma'aron she'arkan la'rachbay shel bayis. That the orain was stationed to the width of the Beis Hamikdash. It was had to be that way because the sticks were that way. Because if you take a look at the picture of the orain on your screen, you see the orain had these badam. What the bar is going to say is that the badam, the poles, had to be in such a way that it was on the width along the width of the orain, so that what was in between the two sticks was the length of the orain, enough to accommodate two people standing in the middle to carry the orain from the front and carry the orain in the back. And because of that, therefore, the orain stood in the Beis Hamikdash like this. You see, it's in the width, in the width. It didn't stand in the length. It standed in the horizontally. And the Gemara is going to say the poles stuck out into the curtain to appear on the other side of the curtain like a woman's breasts sticking out from her clothing. So that's how the orain had to look. And therefore, because they had to accommodate two people to carry the orain, that's why the orain was situated horizontally as opposed to the other kalim of the Beis Hamikdash, which was vertical. So that's the Gemara is going to just go through the same. Ubada Manolan. How do you know the sticks were on the width? In Tanya, we learned in the Brayso of Yericho Abadim. They made it longer. Maybe the badim didn't touch the curtain. It was seen by the curtains. Maybe they made a hole in the curtain and the badim stuck out. The badim could not stick out from the other side. So it pushed Haketzat. How did the badim look from the other side of the curtain? We go to Amid Beis. They stuck out in the curtain. The diamond, it looked like from the other side, like the woman's breast. Shenema, and this is a reference to Shir Hashirim, that we're like the woman that God is married to, and God is resting his head on our breasts, so to speak. So he's resting his presence by the baden and the oren. And the baden, the pussy, the oren, haviyasui. And how do I know how do you know Dilma La'orka the Aron Haviyasui? How do you know the Badem was along the width? Maybe it was along the length. How do you know the sticks were along the width, not along the length? Omar Rav Yehuda, like I explained, Trey Grava Ba'amsa Upagala Mistagale. If it was along the length, that means there's a narrow distance between the two poles, and you can't fit two people in there in a 1.5 amas. So, and therefore, it had to be along the width. How do you know you had to carry the aron with 4 people? And also a custom tray, tray. So you needed 4 people to carry it. So as we explained, so if you look at the picture, so you had to be able to have the aron that there was enough space in between the two badim that 2 people could go in between, and each one, let's say, put the stick on his shoulder when they had to carry the aron. So 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And if the bottom was along the length, that means there was a narrow space between the two. You couldn't fit 2 people there. That's how we solve the issue that every in the Beis Hamikdash, the Shulchan Aruch was along, and the menorah was vertical, and the Aron was horizontal. Now the Gemara says, now the Gemara goes into a picture of what happened in the first Beis Hamikdash. Shlomo HaMelech did something even more than Moshe Rabbeinu. You can see the picture over here. Let's do the picture. If you notice, this is the picture of the Heichal in Shlomo HaMelech's temple. What you notice over here is that there's not just one table. There's 11, 5 on each side and 1 in the middle, 5 on each side of menorahs and 1 in the middle. So Shlomo HaMelech added 10 tables and 10 menorahs to the sanctuary. That's what he did. So, and the Gemara says like this: Tan Rabbanan, Asar Shulchan Aruch Shlomo HaMelech Shnema Shlomo Melech made 10 tables. He put 5 on the right and 5 on the left. Now, what does it mean 5 on the right and 5 on the left? Did he put 5 on the right side of the Beis Hamikdash and 5 on the left side of the Beis Hamikdash? That's impossible. Why? Because if he put it 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side, as you can see in the first picture over here, let me make it bigger. If he put 5 on the left side, that means he actually put shulchans on the south side, along the north side. In Keimatzinu shulchan bedarim b'Torah amra b'shulchan titin al salat tzafon. The Torah tells you that the shulchanos should be on the left, on the north side, which is the right side, which is in this picture. He couldn't have lined it horizontally because you can't put a shulchan on the south side of the. You see, if this would be the south side, you can't put a shulchan over there. The shulchan has to always be in the north. So we lined it up to 10, 5 and 5, and the Moshe Rabbeinu's shulchan was right in the center. That's what the Gemara is saying. El Shamoisha be'ensa, Chamisha b'yaminai v'Chamisha b'smoilei, and it was going vertically. Tanra Abanim, the rabbis taught Esa menorahs Asher Shloimeh. Shloimeh Melech made 10 menorahs. Shnema b'yasem menorahs zohav Esa Chamisha b'vitem behecha Chamisha b'yamin Chamisha b'smol. So he put 5 on the right and 5 on the left. Does that mean he made it horizontally? Did Shlomo Melech make it so that the menorahs lined up across the wall to the other wall from south to north? But that can't be. Why? Because the Torah tells you that the menorah has to be in the south, on the left side when you come in. And if he did it this way, then he means he put the menorah in the north. The Torah tells you that the menorah was opposite the shulchan. So how could that all square away? So the Gemara says, as you see in the picture, he put Moshe's menorah in the middle, 5 lined up vertically on the right side and 5 vertically on the left side, but no menorah was on the north side. One last piece of Gemara, and then we'll stop. Tano Chada, we learned in one brisa. Mechatzi bayis lefnim hoyu menachem. Where from the Tano Chada, mishlishim bayis lefnim hoyu menachem. Basically, what the Gemara is saying over here is what I have here in this picture on the bottom over here. Right where the dot is the halfway mark of the whole building. Right, is the halfway mark of the whole building. So the question is, one brisa says that Moshe put the shulchan and the menorah past the halfway mark, and one brisa says Moshe put the menorah and the shulchan past the 1/3 mark. How does that stem? The answer is like this: if you're only counting everything besides the Kodesh Kodashim, so then there's just 40 amas in the Kodesh, in the sanctuary. So after 20 amas, that's when he put the shulchan and the menorah. But if you count the whole building, which was actually 60 amas, so then after the first third 20 amas, that's when he put the shulchan and the menorah. So they're not arguing. It was always up against near the wall, near the menorah, near the Aron. That's what the Gemara says. Tanachada, we learned in the Brisa, Mechatzi bayis ulefnim hoyu menachem. The menorah and the shulchan was halfway through the sanctuary. Tanachada, one Brisa says, Mishlisha bayis ulefnim hoyu menachem, was actually 1/3 through the sanctuary. Like Kasher, it's not difficult. One included the whole building. So after the first 20 amas, that's when he put the first 20 out of 60, that's where he put the shulchan and the menorah. The other brisa, like a chashav base Kaddish Kedashim, he's not counting the Kaddish Kedashim, he's just counting the Heichel, which was 40 amas. So then after the first 20 amas, which is half the Heichel, which was 40, that's where he put the shulchan and the menorah. Okay, we'll stop over here by the time.
Baruch, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The Mishkan had the badim because they were moving. Why were the badim there also once the Beis Hamikdash was there, stationary? Why would they still be, that was just for transport, wasn't it?